Now let's talk about horizontal pulling, especially if you're working with people that might be at a desk for long periods of time, or you're looking at phones or driving, so basically modernity, right? Is you have this internal rotation that occurs, okay, and this kind of kyphotic posture, head forward posture, all right? So creating some balance now and helping get that individual back into neutral position could be done through overemphasizing horizontal pulling. Now there's gonna be some caveats here in terms of scapular position and low trapezius fibers, but when looking at a program now, you might not wanna do as much horizontal pushing as horizontal pulling. That's just a general rule. I think it's a good one in terms of reestablishing good posture. Okay, now let's look at horizontal pulling mechanics. Again, extending into inverted rows with the rings or the suspension trainers to dumbbell and barbell work, kettlebell work, whatever it may be. The mechanics, for the most part, are the same, all right? What horizontal pulling is concerned with is pulling the scapula together in scapular retraction, okay? So that's the whole name in the game when it comes to pulling, whether it's a dumbbell, again, kettlebell, it doesn't matter, all right? So opening up the scaps in protraction, pulling into retraction. One of the limitations to watch for is not gaining in scapular elevation, okay? So let's look at some variants here. Let's start with the stick, aka barbell. We'll look at bent over row. So bent over row here looks a lot like an RDL going over the side. Okay, barbell can be just above the knees. I want to make sure I have a good posture, meaning neutral spine here, even in my cervical spine. What I'm going to do is row the bar into my belly. Now I can also row it into my chest, which will change the musculature activated, or at least the primary movers. But let's start with row to belly. So my grip is roughly where my bench press grip was. Okay, so remember when I was benching, I wanted to look for that grip where my forearm was perpendicular to the ground, right, coming straight up out of the ground. Same thing with my bent over row, okay? Now you can modify that wider or narrower. Just keep in mind that the wider you go, the less range of motion you get, okay? Same with the bench press. You go wider, but you'll get less range of motion, all right? If you get it inside, right, you'll get more range of motion, right? But usually just outside the frame is fine. You can squeeze the shoulder blades a little bit better as well. Usually somewhere in between is a nice grip that's comfortable, both for the wrists and for making sure you get active range of motion. Okay, so hinged over the side. What I'm gonna do is just squeeze the blades together, real simple. All our horizontal pulling exercise is gonna be concerned with opening up the scap, okay, letting that scap move across my ribs, all right, and then squeezing the scap over the top, okay? Again, avoiding getting any sort of scapular elevation and ensuring that I'm not starting to lose my position. So doing high rep sets with the bent over row can be difficult. And even if we did them with dumbbells, if you have the dumbbells off to the side and doing the same thing here, right, it's going to be harder to hold that position over time. It's easier to lose. So with a lot of the horizontal pulling exercises, you're going to have to evaluate, can position be held? A seated cable row, okay, might be more difficult to hold. If you have a plate-loaded hammer strength Cybex type of row machine, or even just a selectorized machine where there's some sort of brace up in the front, right? You can press against that brace and row. That's going to help maintain posture, so you can really focus on squeezing those scapulae a little bit more effectively. So retraction will be a lot stronger. You don't have to worry about posture. Anytime you incorporate posture, that's going to be more of an added challenge in the exercise. So just keep that in mind. So a bent over row might be a difficult one in high reps. If you did an incline bent over or incline row, so you have the bench set up here, right? And then I would lay on it with facing forward. I could have my hands going around the bench and then squeezing the shoulder blades together. That'll be a better position as well because it's supporting my torso. All right, so these are bilateral movements. We'll look at some unilateral ones in a second. Now, I mentioned in the bent over position, or if even this was dumbbells. So if I was dumbbells here, I'd keep them off to the side and roll them in, again, squeezing my shoulder blade together, okay, and then back down. Now, dumbbells will allow for greater travel. This bar is going to hit my belly. If you have somebody who has a bigger belly, it might even be less travel. So just kind of keep that in mind too. The dumbbells are going to allow me to travel further, okay? You only need to pull until the blade is squeezed in as far as it will go. Increasing range of motion here only increases the stress on the anterior capsule, all right? So reaching down, opening that shoulder blade, right? Feeling that blade slide across your ribs, stretching those mid-trap rhomboids, lats, and then pulling up just to, okay, my blade is squeezed here. I don't need to go any further. Okay, that'll go for the unilateral exercises and the bilateral ones. All right, now if we go row to chest instead, take our barbell hill and row it into chest. Okay, now I'm getting more post-delt because that pushes my elbows out a little bit more. Okay, so now my movement looks like this. So if I did dumbbells, right, look more like a scarecrow type of activity here where my elbows are flared out. Now I'm getting more post-delt. That's a more post-delt dominant row. So by changing where you hit the body with the bar or the stick, or where you align the elbow in a row, will change the muscles that are activated. No matter what what modality you're using, again, these mechanics will remain the same. It's all about squeezing the shoulder blade. If we go to unilateral, traditional One is a dumbbell row. So arm down, foot down, okay? I'll keep my shoulders square, keep my hips square, right? Keep this shoulder blade as under control as that one, right? Not having myself sag, okay? And just pulling the dumbbell in to that stomach region, squeezing the blade, and then reaching back down. Now, as you do these, you can do some modifications here. Gotta make sure off the side. It's very common to do this one. I'm not even moving my shoulder blade, okay? Feel that blade move, squeeze at the top, reach down, open the blade. If you reach further in front of you and stretch, you'll get a little more lat incorporation. So if I'm here, I'm stretching my lat as well. Squeeze, that's far enough. Remember, I don't need to go all the way up here. Okay? That does nothing for the shoulder, or nothing for my upper back. It just stresses out my shoulder. All right? If anything, it's a trunk exercise. Okay, reach forward, squeeze the blade. Again, all the variants that are associated with this. Again, you could do a 3-point row. Now it's unsupported, right? Various versions of that. Okay? You do the same mechanics. Mechanics are always the same. Being mindful that that upper trap doesn't start to activate. Okay? I want to sweep that dumbbell into my torso. Right? Squeeze the blade, reach forward, squeeze the blade, reach forward. That's, again, if it's inverted row, off the barbell, off the J-hooks, or again, a suspension trainer, it's the same thing. Squeeze the blade, open it up. So that's horizontal pulling in a nutshell. Again, there's lots of variants associated. You can explore all those. Some allow for greater loading, some don't. Some are a little bit more of a stability challenge than others. Again, you could take a simple dumbbell row and turn that into all kinds of variants, challenging not just the row pattern, but also the ability to coordinate while you're rowing. All right, so if you want to do high reps, find something that will support the torso so you can focus a little bit more on the scap movement. If you want something that's more functional, something that's incorporate more trunk musculature, then you can start to more do a closed chain type of exercise and start to remove the support. In this case, moving from on the bench to maybe a 3-point row where I have one hand on the bench and my feet are supporting me rather than the bench. Lots of variants that you could explore. All right, we'll see you in the next video.